Hey there, Patriots. It is Praying Medic, and this is my QAnon update for Friday, May 25th. Q has not posted in a few days, and as promised, I'm going to do some topical videos on just some themes that I've seen Q post in the past that are interesting to me. If Q takes an extended break, I actually have a lot of these videos I would like to do. I'm doing this particular video, Who Knows Where the Bodies Are Buried, because I had a couple of dreams a few nights ago, and it was a bit strange. I had these dreams. One of them was definitely about where the bodies are buried. And I got on Twitter that morning, and one of the very first things I saw was this thread from Paul Ceran, who is a really good Q researcher. I like his graphics. I like the way he puts things together. So he does topical Q threads, and he has allowed me to share this in some other threads. So you can find in the description box on this video a link to this original thread if you're interested in checking it out and his other threads. I'd like to go through this thread first, and then I'll tell you about the dreams at the end of the thread, because it'll make more sense that way. So the Q has often asked the rhetorical question, who knows where the bodies are buried? And instead of slow building this, Paul says, we are going to get right into it. These are the four people that Q has said they know where the bodies are buried. President Trump, Admiral Rogers, Erik Prince, and General Flynn. So let's look into how we know that. Recently, Q dropped this, which was a question, who knows where the bodies are buried? Reread drops regarding who knows where the bodies are buried. So Q often points us to go back and reread previous posts, and this is what Paul is going to do in this particular thread. This is one of the most significant threads of all of Q's, and this is number 14. Starts out with SCIF, military intelligence. What are state secrets and how are they upheld in the Supreme Court? I will be doing a future video, hopefully, on state secrets. We'll talk about that. Q gets down to this question. What was Flynn's background? Why is this relevant? Did Admiral Rogers, NSA, meet Trump privately without authorization? Does POTUS know where the bodies are buried? Does POTUS have the goods and most bad actors? Was Trump asked to run for president? Why? By who? All right, so Q suggests that Trump does know where the bodies are buried, and also that he has the goods and most bad actors. I think this is restating the same thing twice. Most of the time when Q asks who knows where the bodies are buried, I think Q is asking who has the goods on most bad actors? Who has the details, who knows about the crimes of people that have been involved in criminal activity for a long time. Was Trump asked to run for president? Why and by who? We'll get to that in a minute. The president knows where the bodies are buried. He has the goods. And look, he has been a New York businessman for a long time. He knows a lot of wealthy, powerful people. He was able to get close to these people, into the circle of friends, without getting dirty, without getting involved in the criminal activity himself. He observed what was going on, probably got, and look, it's been known for a long time that President Trump, way before he was president, he had really good intelligence. He has always had good security, and he has had good intelligence sources. So he knew what he was getting into long before he ran for president. Still on the same long one, number 14, Q asked, was Trump asked to run for president with assurances made to prevent tampering? How is POTUS always 5 steps ahead? Who is helping him? All right, so one of the guys that is helping Trump is Admiral Rogers, former head of NSA, who just stepped down a couple weeks ago and who is now testifying in congressional committees. Admiral Rogers is one of the guys who knows where the bodies are buried, being former head of NSA. He has all the goods. He has all the information. He is the top feeder on that chain. And whether it's lost Hillary emails or the lost texts between Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, or the tarmac meeting, Admiral Rogers is the guy who has all the intel. So, although it's troubling to live in a society where surveillance is the norm, in this instance, it has been very instrumental to have the resources, to have all this information on these corrupt people. Look, they built an intelligence community, an apparatus that scoops up everyone's private information, and they have been using it for nefarious purposes. It is unfortunate that they did that, but what is fortunate is they lost control of it. It fell into the hands of good people, and now the president has access to all that information, and he is flipping the script, and he is going to use that information to take these people down. So Q here, back on drop number 14, asks, was Trump asked to run for president, and by whom? Paul believes it was General Flynn and Erik Prince. I would agree. I think it was a group of military people, Flynn being former Defense Intelligence, and Erik Prince being former Navy SEAL. These guys run in the same circles. I believe they recruited Trump to run for president. All right. This drop number 97 is mostly about General Flynn, and Q asks us to read this carefully. Flynn, what is Flynn's background? What's his rank? Lieutenant General when he was in the military. Background is military intelligence. Was he involved in intel ops? Oh, he sure was. What access or special privileges? General was at the top. He had special privileges over everything. Why is it relevant? Because he knows where the bodies are buried. Setup. Who wins? Q here is suggesting that because General Flynn had access to all this intelligence with Admiral Rogers, they were able to set this whole thing up in a way that would allow the president and them to win, the good guys to win. Who becomes exposed? The bad guys. Who knows where the bodies are buried? Well, that's what we're finding out. Who has access? What is military intelligence? Who was part of military intelligence during Barack Obama's term? Who was fired during Barack Obama's term? Why is it relevant? Right. Flynn was, I believe he was with the Defense Intelligence Agency during Barack Obama's term, and he was at odds with James Clapper and John Brennan and a lot of the people in the intelligence community, and they were always pushing to get him out of there. They knew that he was a threat to what they wanted to accomplish. So that is one of the reasons why we think that Flynn is going to be instrumental in helping bring all this stuff down. These are just some answers to the questions that Q asked. Yeah, so Flynn knows where the bodies are buried. Post 9/11, military intelligence has had the same technological capabilities as the three-letter agencies, FBI, CIA, NSA. And with that, Flynn has a ton of intelligence on bad people. Q has often said that this whole thing that is going down with the president is a military operation, and that it's being run by the generals and the admirals. They're using military intelligence. In some cases, they plan to use military courts instead of civilian ones. They're trying to avoid using the corrupted civilian intelligence, civilian courts, and that is why there's such heavy military involvement in this operation. So in this post 224, we have a discussion about Erik Prince. Paul decodes the MAP as Master Action Plan. One of the Anons posted this, Betsy DeVos, Erik Prince, Trump. Then there's an article from Intercept talking about Prince being a mercenary. He founded the contracting company Blackwater. So Q responded to that saying, who knows where the bodies are buried? The map is in front of you. Reread, expand your thinking. Purpose for time being spent here. Q. So now we have Erik Prince added to the equation. Evidently, Prince is highly involved in the intelligence community. He's former CIA. He's former Navy SEAL. He was a former defense contractor. He knows a lot. Knows where the bodies are buried. Has the bad actors. He has the goods on him. So he is one of the guys, I think, that is working behind the scenes to help the president corner the corrupt people in government and corporate America. Yes, we know that he is a former CIA operative. A lot of people don't trust Prince because he was former CIA. However, there's a reason for that. We'll get to that in a minute. Going back to Flynn, Paul goes back here to drop 260. Q says, who knows where the bodies are buried? Flynn is safe. We protect our patriots. Q. So there's been a lot of concern about General Flynn, that he is in trouble, that he has been taken advantage of by some bad people. Q has always reminded us that General Flynn is safe. And since I don't have the ability to talk to General Flynn personally, I am inclined to believe that General Flynn is being taken care of. In drop 953, we have some interesting information here. It says, and this is from March 17th, Flynn was targeted. Why? Who knows where the bodies are buried? Cleared of all charges. Trump administration, version 2. So there's a suggestion here, again, that General Flynn was targeted. They knew he was going to be targeted. Why? Because Flynn is the guy who can take them all down. He knows where the bodies are buried. Will be cleared of all charges and will be involved in the Trump administration, version 2, and that's to clean out. See, this is in March, and since then a lot of people have left the Trump administration and other people have come in. And it's been my belief that General Flynn is working behind the scenes in some capacity. So General Flynn is definitely going to have a bigger role before this is all over. When John McCain posted his photos at the spiderweb in Syria with all of the terrorists, Q posted this. The pictures were leaked for this very moment. Who is not pictured? What forces shadowed no name? Contractors, special contractors, what was delivered. So we believe that it was military contractors, people like Prince, who were following John McCain, who were taking pictures and had the goods on him. And that is just one way that people like Eric Prince know where their bodies are buried. They get information on traitors like McCain. So it is unclear exactly what Eric Prince's scope is, who all he worked for, what people he has the goods on. Although we do know a little bit about Anthony Weiner's laptop. That has come up recently. So we'll talk about that in just a second here. So Paul takes us back to this post by Q. This is about General Flynn being cleared of all charges. Done in 30 is the top. This is at April 27th. The link there is a Fox News article talking about why did General Flynn get charged with lying to the FBI when the FBI says he didn't lie to them? Why would he plead guilty to something untrue? Define testimony. Define on the record. Who knows where the bodies are buried? Flynn is safe. Expand your thinking. It's my belief that the general actually was called in to testify with Robert Mueller to get his testimony on the record, to essentially explain what was happening with respect to the criminals, the cabal. And although this, lying to the FBI thing came out of it, his sentencing has been delayed for months. And it's my guess that the general is ultimately going to walk from this charge, and that it was a distraction just to allow the general to get some things on the record that needed to be said. So we will see how that works out. I think we're going to see very quickly. And Paul notes that Flynn has known for a long time what the game is of Obama administration. They tried to frame him. So he was not afraid to sit at a table with Vladimir Putin at a dinner because he has the goods on all the bad people. All right. This is about Erik Prince, and it talks about what Erik Prince knows concerning Anthony Weiner's laptop. This is a previous post by Q. And it includes a tweet by Mike Flynn Jr. What does Erik Prince know about the actual contents of Anthony Weiner's laptop? I've heard it's damning. Right, so there's a Breitbart interview with Erik Prince, and he talks about what's on Anthony Weiner's laptop. That is coming to a head. Now that we've gotten rid of Schneiderman in New York as the AG, Preet Bharara is gone, and some other people are gone, and we're putting in some new judges and some new U.S. attorneys. That whole thing is about to take off. And if what we suspect is on Anthony Weiner's laptop is actually on Anthony Weiner's laptop, there is some very, very damning evidence against most of the people involved in corruption and politics at the highest levels. That insurance file, what does that mean? That means that is a blackmail file. That was information that Anthony Weiner had that was dirt on everybody in case he ever needed to blackmail somebody or get out of a jam. And that information is now in the hands of the good guys. So that evidence will obviously be used to prosecute. All right. Speaking of which, Rudy. So Q asked this, who knows where the bodies are buried? Reread drops regarding who knows where the bodies are buried. Rudy, now comes the pain. Q. This is right after Rudy Giuliani joined the president's legal team. And Q suggested it wasn't to be a defense attorney. Rudy, being a former New York prosecutor and mayor, Rudy knows a lot about the crimes of people, especially on the East Coast. Rudy knows where the bodies are buried too. So Rudy will be an integral part of the prosecution, I think, of all these people. So Paul here has one last question. Who knows where the bodies are buried? Is that about actual bodies and burial sites? Not exactly. We believe it is about the bad actors. Does POTUS have the goods on most bad actors? We believe that is what it is meant when Q asks where the bodies are buried. And these are the ones who know where the bodies are buried. Paul ends his thread with this really cool graphic. And now I would like to tell you about these dreams that I had. This was on May 21st. This was the second of 3 dreams I had that night. In this dream, I was somewhere at night, and I had a feeling like I was somewhere in Europe, possibly the UK. I was walking out on a street, and I heard people talking. And they were talking about bodies, dead bodies. And there were these very deep sewers in these adjacent to these streets, and they had grates on them. They were covered, but I couldn't see them. I just knew in the dream there was these very deep sewers, and I knew that the people were talking about how bodies had been disposed of in these sewers when people committed crimes. So that was the first dream. In the second dream, that was actually the second dream, this is the third one, I found a newspaper clipping that mentioned 3 missing people, and if I remember correctly, I believe they're from Russia. The newspaper clipping was a clue about what happened to these people. It seemed to me like they were killed, and this was kind of a clue about where the bodies were, maybe what happened to them. The strange thing was I was not the only one who knew about this newspaper clipping. Other people knew about it too. But none of them seemed to understand that it was about where these people had been killed and what had happened. I was the only one who seemed to know that this newspaper clipping was about those 3 Russian people. So as I think about these dreams, about where the bodies are buried, I just want to suggest something here. Yes, when Q asks who knows where the bodies are buried, it's generally a metaphorical reference, but it could be a literal reference because look, there are a lot of crimes that have been committed, and although the FBI and the NSA and different intelligence agencies have some ability to retain evidence and to know where, how these crimes are committed and where the bodies literally are. There are a lot of crimes where there probably is little evidence, probably no testimony, and no one's going to come forward to explain to the law enforcement people what's going on here. There are children who are locked up in buildings around the world who are being locked up, and they're being tortured and they're being abused. And law enforcement doesn't have the ability to know where all of those places are, who is running them. We as citizens, if we have any information, it's going to be incumbent upon us to take that to law enforcement. And I would suggest this as well. Years ago, when I first started having dreams, this is 2008, 2009, I had a series of dreams where I was basically solving FBI cold cases. There were a lot of cases where they didn't have any leads as to where the bodies had been disposed of, who committed the crimes. And in these dreams, I was given addresses and phone numbers, and I was given detailed information about where the bodies were, how the crimes had been committed, who did it. And in one dream, I remember sitting in my house and having FBI agents interview me. And I was giving them information about where these bodies were. And they asked me how I knew about these crimes if I wasn't involved. And I said, look, God gives me dreams. And he shows me things in dreams that I would not have knowledge of naturally. I wasn't ready for that kind of assignment back then. I was afraid to get involved in something like that. I'm not afraid anymore. We are coming to a time in God's plan where all of us need to do what we can to help solve these crimes, to help bring the suffering to an end. And I would just suggest to you that you be open. Ask God to give you understanding. Ask him to give you revelation. Maybe he'll give you a dream. Maybe he'll give you a word of knowledge or a word of wisdom about where certain things are and where certain people are. The difficulty is, obviously, going to law enforcement and saying, yeah, I had this dream and I think I know that there's some bodies buried in this field back here. How you work that out is up to you. But I believe God wants to help us solve these crimes. Before I did this video, a woman sent me a message on Twitter, and she said, it's strange that you were talking about these dreams. I had the first dream in a long time last night. And in this dream, I was on Epstein Island, and I was in one of those underground tunnels, and I saw this satanic diagram, and I looked up on this wall, and I saw these different things there. So she is now aware that God can give her understanding and revelation about these crimes. And who knows, she may get specific information about things that will actually help law enforcement. All of that is to say, be open to God giving you information about where the bodies are buried, about who is involved in these crimes. And like I said, how you get that into the hands of law enforcement is up to you. I don't have any specific revelation of my own right now, but I think that as the takedown of these criminal enterprises moves forward, I think it's going to take on a supernatural twist. So, like I said, be open. Keep everyone in prayer. Keep the president in prayer. Keep us in prayer. Paul, thank you for letting me do this thread. Appreciate it. And I will look forward to doing another one. That's all I have for this broadcast. I'll catch you on the next one. This is Praying Medic, signing off.